Welcome to Actor for Real, the podcast where aspiring and seasoned actors get real, practical advice to navigate the acting industry. I'm your host, Anastasia Chernaya. Join me as we explore everything from audition techniques and industry insights to personal growth and success stories. Let's dive in and take your acting career to the next level. In this podcast, we are going to talk about getting paid for real as an actor. And I thought this would be the most perfect opportunity for me to share my personal experience with getting paid fully for something that I did 2 months ago. I will get into those details a little bit later, so make sure you stay tuned and you continue watching this episode. But also, aside from that, what we're going to talk about in this episode is understanding the pay structure, the pay model in this industry, because it differs greatly. I will take you through the steps that you need to take to make sure that you are actually getting paid. And then, yes, I will share that story with you. First thing that you need to understand is that while you have had any kind of other job outside of film and TV industry, you were probably hired under the terms and conditions of getting paid with an hourly wage, right? You were paid per hour, or if you worked in an office, if you worked for a certain firm and you had a contract, you were paid either bi-weekly or on a monthly basis and you had a salary. Well, when you become an actor, this pay model changes drastically because this industry operates completely different. Nobody can really offer you a monthly salary because you get hired per project and sometimes per day or even per a few hours. So every time you get hired, you being an individual contractor, you are self-employed when you're an actor, and I will definitely get a different podcast episode on being a self-employed sole proprietor of your own company, which pretty much you become. And you get hired per project, per hour, or per day. And this is what you will most likely see, especially in the first many years of you working as an actor, as a professional actor. Here's another difference. If you work outside of the film and TV industry, let's say in a restaurant or a bar or a store or you name it, basically service industry, you will be paid hourly wage, right? Which means that if you make over 40 hours usually per week, then after that you will be paid double time. Now, in the film and TV industry, it works completely different. You can actually get overtime and overtime payment in the same day that you were hired for. Now, how does this pay model work? What you will see in the first stages of your career is that a pay rate might look like $100 or $150. It doesn't really specify how many hours that would be, right? There's nothing else that's specified. It might say rate is $150, rate is $200, rate is $75. Yes, you will also see that. And that means that you will be paid that amount for the whole day of being on set. Unless it's specified that you will get $25 for 4 days of working on this project, which also happens, especially if it's a student film or somebody who doesn't really have a budget and this is a passion project for them. It might actually be quite possible. It does happen a lot. So you have to read into it. So unless it specifies that the rate is per certain hours, it means that you will be paid that amount for that specific day or that specific project until you're wrapped on that project. Now, if the pay rate on that breakdown, on that posting for the acting job says that the job pays $200 per 8 hours, it means that you will be paid for the day the minimum of $200. Whether you show up to set and you're there for an hour, 5 hours or 8 hours, you are guaranteed that amount, which is $200. And we are going to work with this number because this is exactly what I am working with right now. Now, Remember how I told you that overtime in the regular, any kind of industry outside of film and TV looks like getting overtime after 40 hours of worked time per week? Well, here in the film and TV industry, you will get overtime if you stay on set, actively on set, and you're not yet repped over the amount of hours that you were booked on. Which in this case, we'll use my example, $200 per 8 hours. So anything over 8 hours is going to pretty much present an overtime for you. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more exciting, yet a little bit tricky. Because the breakdown is not that simple, but it is exciting because it means that the longer you stay on set, the more money you will get paid. Now, anything that's over 8 hours will have two different breakdowns. Let me explain. Hour 9 and hour 10, after those 8 hours, the original 8 hours, will be paid at time and a half, which means that when you divide your base rate, which is $200, you divide it by 8, you get a $25 per hour. That is your rate. Now, a time and a half means that you will need to multiply 25 by 1.5, which brings it down to $37.50 per hour for hours 9 and 10. Which means that basically if you stay on set for 10 hours, you will get paid $200 plus, you tell me, how much will it be? 37.5 plus 37.5 is how much you're gonna be paid. I didn't get that far, so you guys do the math and let me know in the comments how much the hour 9 and 10 will be. Now, anything after hour 10, which means that basically starting with hour 11, if you spend on set more than 10 hours, you start hitting double time. That is easy math for me because all you need to do is take your base rate, which is $25 per hour, and you multiply it by 2, which is it's $50 per hour. And that is extremely exciting because sometimes you might get a 14, 15, 16 hour days on set and the check is just lovely even if you're working with a complete base rate, which is set by the state. It gets yummy. It gets delicious, you guys. And then you just put all of that together. And then usually you do take out lunchtime, which if you have 30 or an hour to have lunch, which that will be announced to you. And we will actually get in more details about how that works completely with all of the tricks, with all of the little things that add on or take that stuff out. And then you pretty much get how much you are gonna get paid. And that's how the pay model works in a nutshell in the film and TV industry, which is really actually exciting. It might seem like a lot of math, but nobody can guarantee you a monthly wage, which is the bottom line of this whole thing. And you get hired per project per day in the best case scenario. Now, this is exactly what we're going to talk about because if you were hired to work on a project for just a day rate, which is exactly what it might be if it doesn't have an amount of hours next to it. If it looks like 200, that is a day rate. And it doesn't matter how many hours you actually stay on set. You might be there for 12 hours and you'll still get paid $200. So you need to be ready for that and you actually need to pay attention to all of the details on the breakdown, which is the basically job posting for that project. And so that you don't get, frustrated and upset when something comes out and you felt like you had done the math, but it actually was a day rate and it didn't matter if you stayed there for 12, 13, 15 hours and you still got paid the same amount. You have to kind of keep that in mind when you're accepting the job as well. So pay attention. Let me know if you have any questions so far in the comment section. I'll be so happy to reply to those. Also, as a friendly reminder, you guys, I have an email and it is in the show notes. So if you have a particular question and you want to send me a private email, feel free to use that. I do check it out regularly. So yeah, feel free to use it for all of your questions and concerns and comments and so forth. Now guys, let me tell you about what happened with this project. And I'm not going to name any names because I'm going to continue working for all of those companies that are involved because I am an actor and I want to make sure that my bills are paid. But these things happen. Everybody is a human being even with all of the AI advancements, we're still human beings working at every step of the production, processing things and having a bunch of paperwork to deal with and all kinds of stuff. So I'm not holding it against them. But let me tell you, people, I worked on a commercial 2 months ago as a background actor, and my rate was, who wants to guess? Yes, you in the back. It was $200 per 8 hours. And I worked 2 days in a row. And the first day I had overtime. I was on set the total of 11 hours. And you know what the math would look like. And the second day I was on set for about 6 hours total, which means that I was still entitled for my rate of $200 per 8 hours. I feel like this is the most perfect example to you. Now, aside from the fact that we did not receive our checks in the mail within the first month after that project has wrapped, and the company who hired me did give a heads up that the payroll was working on the checks and processing the payments. When I received my check, well, surprise, surprise, the only money that I received were basically my base rate, which is $200 per $8 times 2 because I worked 2 days, and I got $400 minus all of the taxes. Naturally, of course, that still applies. When I contacted the payroll company and 2 months later, I received my overtime check, which I was told that that check would be sent out separately. Well, needless to say that they're also not very great at doing their math. Or they're not aware about the pay structure and the pay model. So they should definitely watch this episode and I should send it to them, I think. Yeah, I'll do that. But what they did instead of the actual pay model, which I have already told you about, where the 9th and the 10th hour are paid at time and a half, and then anything after is paid at double time. So basically, the total amount that I was supposed to receive was $125. Well, my check was $75 total. So what they did, instead of using that pay model, they divided the base rate and they got $25 an hour. So they paid 3 hours at that same rate. Well, guys, let me tell you the exact steps that you need to make sure that you take so that you can also get your checks sent to you correctly and you can negotiate and track your payment and make sure that you are actually getting paid. Come on. First thing that you need to do, when you get to set, you will be filling out the paperwork, which include some contracts. It will include the basic information for you and the employer. It will also include the basic information for the payroll company, if that's separate from the employer, which usually it is if you're filling out all kinds of paperwork. And there will be a page aside from all of the tax documents, which you'll also most likely will be filling out. There will be a separate page which will have the full information about the day that you are working on with the base rate and the hours that you were in, the hours that you were out at the end of the day, and lunch hours, anything that can get added to your check. And that will be signed by the production assistant person who is assigned to working with you directly. And what you need to make sure after you fill out all of that paperwork is that you take pictures of absolutely everything. Well, except for text documents. You really don't need the text documents because that's going to be redundant and you're going to have to repeat that all over again, and it's not something that will make a difference. My dog is snoring. I don't know if you can hear that. Sweet baby. I bored him, I guess. He's like, I don't get paid, so who cares? So at the end of the day, after you fill out all of the documents, after you receive your signature from the production assistant or the AD who is responsible for you and signing the paperwork for you, make sure that you take a picture of every single page so that you can keep it for your records and make sure that everything is correct when it comes back. Also, that paperwork might have contact information for your contact for this particular project. It might be a producer, it might be AD or something like that, where if you need to track anything, you can reach out to them if you have any questions. So you do want that information. You want to make sure to take pictures because they're not going to be giving you any copies. So it is your responsibility to take a picture of every single page of the paperwork packet that you receive on set. Let me give you another example. About a month ago, I also worked on set, which was an independent production. It was a feature film, and it wasn't something that was going through like a payroll company. It wasn't something of a bigger scale as that commercial that I am talking about as well. So the paperwork that I signed when I got to set looked completely different. It was much more simple. It had like a basic NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, which is also very basic, which means that you shouldn't be talking to anybody about this project. You shouldn't be posting on any kind of social media or anything like that. And it didn't have my in and out times. It didn't have really anything. I was on set for about 2.5 hours. They hired me for this rate that didn't actually have the hours on it. It was just like a day rate. And because that paperwork did not have a page which had my in and out, what I asked that AD to do is to write, like on the back of that paperwork, write that I was in at this time and I was out at this time, and sign it and date it so that I could make sure that if something was to go missing, like the pay, I could backtrack it and I had this proof that I actually was on set and that I am still waiting for my pay, because you never know what can happen, because again, it's people who are working every step of the production, and you do need to remember that. Okay, so that is the main thing that you need to do while you're still on set or you are wrapped and you're leaving set. Make sure you have those pictures. And then you just wait for your check to get a mail, unless it's a transfer to your account, like an ACH transfer or Zelle or PayPal. Sometimes you would get paid like that as well. It all depends on the production. It all depends on size of the production and the company that hires you. It is quite normal to be paid through Zelle or cash or PayPal or just a regular ACH transfer through a company and stuff. And well, I think that's another episode that's coming about the types of payments that you can be receiving in this industry. So you just wait for your check to get it in mail. And once you do, it will look like a pay stub and a check attached to it, which you probably have ever received in your lifetime if you worked for a different company outside of film and TV industry. It doesn't look too different if that's the check. And the check or the pay stub, well, both check and the pay stub will have the information of the payroll company or the person who paid you. Now, if something is wrong, like it was in my case because I was missing overtime payment, the next step that I needed to take was to contact the payroll company. What I usually do is I call the phone number, which is located under the name of the payroll company. There's usually the name of the payroll company in big letters with the logo, then it would have the address and it would have a phone number. When I called that phone number, I was told that that pay stub actually had a contact information for the person responsible for the payment of this particular project. So what I needed to do then is to find that information, which was at the top of my pay stub, with the email address written there with the contact person's name. And I sent her an email and I said, hey, I'm missing overtime payment for this project. I sent her the picture of my check and my pay stub. I sent her the picture of the paperwork that I took when I was about to leave set after I was repped, which showed them that, hey, I worked. I did my part. Where's your part? To which I received a response that it would be sent separately, and then I waited, and then, well, boom, 2 months later, just a few days ago, I received that check and it was wrong. So what I needed to do, I needed to contact her again via the email. I actually did break it down to her. I had to do this. I had to break down the pay model to her in the email, did all the math, and I told her that my check was supposed to be $125. I was nice about that. I didn't give her attitude. I just pointed out to the mistake and I told her what needed to be done next. And then I also asked her if she wanted me to cash that check right now and then send me the remaining balance, or if she wanted to cancel out this check payment and then to send me a whole new check with the full amount, which for me, it's totally okay. I'm okay waiting because I worked as a brand ambassador for about 2 years when I first moved to Los Angeles, and the turnaround is usually between 60 to 90 days. So I got used to waiting and I got used to planning for that type of a situation. So it's definitely up to you on how you want to go about it, but those are the steps that you need to take. And as soon as you receive your full payment, and if you do receive it soon enough, then you can, of course, delete the pictures of that paperwork. You don't really need to hold on to it. If everything's correct and production completed their side of this contract after you have completed yours by being on set, working there, being present and nice, then yeah, you can just discard that. These are pretty much the steps that you do need to take to make sure that you get paid. Just so that you know, there's always information of either the payroll company or the person who paid you on the check or on the pay stub. Every 2 days, I'm going to send her an email to make sure that she is staying on top of that. And this is kind of the thing that you have to do in this industry. You have to stand up for yourself all of the time. Now, in 9 years that I have been a professional actor, both non-union or union jobs, I never actually went without getting paid when I was promised pay. Yeah, there have been a couple of instances like this one that I told you about where the payment was delayed for whatever reason, but I've always gotten paid. I don't want you to feel hopeless because I've never personally experienced not ever being paid and being let down in that financial department. So I think that generally people are keeping their promises, especially if you have paperwork to show up for that, because then of course you can take it higher and you can take it probably to the labor board, and you can, I don't know, maybe hire a lawyer to make sure that you get paid for that $75 fee rate that you did or something. In 9 years that I've been here doing this, I want to tell you that I've never ever had to take it further because I feel like generally people are decent when it comes to holding up their side of the bargain. Another thing that I wanted to brush upon is if you were on set and you did fill out the paperwork, or you didn't have any paperwork and you forgot to take the picture of that paperwork, and then you do kind of run into this issue with payment, and whether it's delayed or the company just kind of went AWOL, well, every single situation will probably be different. For instance, this same project, I worked with a different girl that I met there, and we have been in communication. She actually one of the people who inspired me to actually do this podcast, aside from others who've reached out to me to see how they can get paid because an issue like this, arises. And she actually didn't take any pictures of that paperwork. And well, that's where it might become even more difficult. And the point that she brought up is that the production should have that paperwork. And that is true. If you reach out to the payroll company and for some reason they don't have a record of you working at all, or they don't have the record of the correct hours which you worked, technically either you or them can reach out to the production to request the correct paperwork, but that would be just so extremely complicated. And then again, where will you find the information for the production company if you don't have any kind of record of it and any kind of paperwork saved to your phone? This job, I was hired through a kind of staffing agency for background actors. And technically you can reach out to that company and they would have that information, and at least they can sort of stand up for you and reach out to the production to request all of that and kind of like see if they can step in and help expedite the resolving of this issue. But if you booked yourself through one of the breakdown websites, then all you can do is see if you can reach out to anybody who you were in contact with prior to getting hired for this, or prior to actually your work date. So always try to keep all of the emails, all of the phone numbers, all of the contact information of every single person you come in contact with in the process of being cast for this project, and then working, and then maybe after. Because you never know when you would need to reach out to any of them and get some kind of information for something. So that is my best advice to you, is to always keep all kinds of information. It's great if you can have it organized. I'm not that very good at that. I'm working on that. I'm trying to learn how to be more organized. But you know, you can use spreadsheets, you can use just notebook, you can use your phone to save information like that in the contacts. I started a spreadsheet this year where I try to write down every single email and the phone number of people that I come in contact with during the production process, from casting to, you know, getting paid. I'm not very good at doing it right away and keeping track with that. Sometimes I go back and I add information, sometimes I don't, sometimes I skip that because, well, I am myself currently understaffed. So I can only do so much, but the best thing that you can do is actually take pictures of all of the paperwork and keep the emails and contacts of everybody. That is pretty much all I have for you. If you would like me to update you once I actually finally receive all of the payments, which it will be the third check that I should be receiving, let me know in the comments and I can keep you updated. Maybe I'll make a little update video if you guys are interested. So to sum this up, in this podcast, we talked about the different pay structure of the film and TV industry. And we also talked about my personal experience with getting underpaid by this production company, or the payroll company, for this job that I did 2 months ago. And we also talked about the strategies and the things and the steps that you can take to make sure that you are getting paid. I hope this podcast was helpful to you. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. If you would like to listen to this podcast, you can follow the link in the show notes, which will take you to my podcast website. And from there, you can find it on any podcast platform. I'm available on every single platform that's out there for the podcast. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform and you want to see the video for this episode, make sure to follow the link that will take you to my YouTube channel, which is exactly the same thing, except you can see me smiling. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. That will help me greatly because I'm doing this for free. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.